Folks, we are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. I am your host, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR. With me every Wednesday night, like clockwork, my once a week work spouse, Bad Mike Battalato.
And I know you're thinking, wait a second, is this an older episode and I just hit the wrong button? Because you may be tuning in and said that I've seen that guy below before, like couple months ago.
We got the right Baron, man. We got the
Yeah,
right
what's going
Baron.
on here? No, that's Ken Spencer. And Ken, he was on earlier about something else. Now he's on about Rocket Age. So, I mean, so if Ken just keeps coming out with Kickstarters, he may be like our once every 3 months, guest, special guest. Whenever he has a new Kickstarter, we'll just throw him up there and throw Ken out there. But we also like the fact that Ken gave us some pretty hot opinions about stuff last time. So we're gonna talk about his Kickstarter first hour or so. Then we're gonna just open it up to all kinds of crazy opinions because we like to hear what Ken has to say on this. Because he's so Ken's an archaeologist. I mean, he's an archaeologist. He's a smart human being. He's not like Eric and I. We just we got by on our looks. We get by on our looks.
Civil servant for 20 years. God help you.
I just got by on my looks. I hired out for things, and I don't want to talk about it, but that's all I did.
Mike just used his smile to get things done.
I did.
Raised his eyebrows.
Wait a second. Are you saying I can't get by on my looks? What am I hearing here?
Sure, kid. You're a good looking man too. I'm not going to throw that. I'm not going to throw that out there, but I will. I'll throw it out there.
I'm getting jealous now.
Eric, so Eric, you were a good-looking man. I saw those pictures you posted.
Oh yeah,
like 20 years ago. You had some of that Village People biker look going big time with those glasses and that stash you used to have. You were rocking my world back then. Wow, you look good.
Before all this gray came in, but yeah.
You were like, yes, you did. You look like the motorcycle cop from the Village People.
I'm not sure if that's good or not.
He's a buff guy, man. He was rocking it. But I do want to open up. So I want to say something off the bat. So, North Texas RPG Con, first week of June, we're doing really well. We're got about 300 and something people signed up. We only have 500 spots, and they tend to fill up very quickly the last couple months. And we have walk-ups too. So if you're thinking about getting a ticket, you don't want to come, go to the tabletop events.
I put it on the bottom of the screen. You can go to North Texas RPG.
Yes.
North Texas RPGcon.com or go right to tabletop events. Those are your two links down there on the bottom.
We have a bevy of incredible special guests from both. We've been trying to have some younger guys. We have
down in front.
We got a lot of the older guys, sure. I mean, because you got to have the Alan Hammocks and the Zeb Cooks and the Darlenes, but we also have some of the younger people in our hobby, like Ben Barsh, Keelan Halverson. But we added somebody yesterday and this was just like came out of nowhere. And God bless Gary. Gary's great. And Gary said, yeah, I told Gary about this person. He said, that sounds like a great fit. Because Gary will do whatever I say when it comes to special guests. He doesn't know who these people are. He has no clue.
Oh, shit.
But yesterday
spot, man. That ain't right. Holy.
Don't worry, Eric. Your day's going to come. Ken's a special guest. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. I'm a special guest.
I thought you were special. I mean, he's a special guest on the show tonight. I didn't know.
And he's a special guest at the events. Rocket Age events at North Texas in my Rocket Ranger outfit. Since someone's asking if this is Snoopy cosplay.
Oh boy. Anyway, so here's the meat of the matter is we invited, and this person accepted, we invited Kelsey Dion, who is running the kick-ass, very successful Shadow Dark Kickstarter, which I look like it's going to break $1 million to me.
Oh, I'm going to guess. I'm still saying it's going to hit 1.25.
It is the most successful OSR style Kickstarter of all time. It beat out OSC last week because OSC I think was at 775.
Yeah, this is 892.
And look, when Eric first told me about this, he was all excited. I was like, it looks like it's 5th edition stuff, whatever. I started delving into it. I started watching her videos, and this gal is old school, man. She learned from the feet of James Mishler, who, if you know anything about James Mishler, he doesn't publish a lot now, but he is probably one of the biggest living authorities on the Judges Guild Wilderlands setting. I mean,
more so than even Rob Conley. I'm not saying it to offend Rob, but James was there first. How about that?
So she learned from his feet, and then she did 5e, and Eric ran Shadow Dark last Friday. I watched it. I was greatly amused. They had a great time, it looked like. So I took a chance, and Eric and I contacted her about being a special guest on the show, which it looks like she is going to be a special guest on Talking Crit sometime in April. And I also asked her to be a special guest in North Texas. So she is going to be at North Texas this year. And I also understand that she's going to be a guest at Gamehole. So she did her, she's been publishing videos and how-to tips and GM stuff for I found her videos going back 4 or 5 years. And so she's been doing this a long time. And so she's done her time, and now she has this ridiculously successful Kickstarter. And so I'm like, shoot, we need to have some Shadow Dark at North Texas. And
Definitely.
She was absolutely thrilled to come, and we talked for probably about an hour. And she's got the bona fide. She's exactly what we're looking for in North Texas, because we like old school, but we like to bring in 5e. We probably have as many 5e games as we have old school games, even though we have more old school games than probably any convention out there. And this is Shadow Dark's perfect, man. Shadow Dark's 5e in a old school way. And the best part is, I've told Eric and Ken, is she's sticking it to WotC where the sun don't shine, which I think is great. This
same question.
Yes, as you said, did Shadow get the middle finger? It gave not just the middle finger. I think the whole fist went up there.
That sounds painful.
Because I think people are I think this is good. I think people are tired of the shenanigans at WotC, and they're tired of crappy substandard product, and they're tired of being treated like imbeciles. And I hope that Matt Finch's upcoming Kickstarter blows stuff away. I hope that Wolfgang, when he does his, it blows this stuff away. I hope that Greg Gillespie, if he decides to do Kickstarter, I hope his rule set blows this away. I am all for all these guys starting their own games, and I hope they all do really well. And that is directly a result of WotC trying to screw over gamers and try to put hundreds of my friends out of work, or at least dozens of my friends. I don't have that many friends.
Well, I think Shadow Dark would have been the first OGL product that would have been taxed under the 1.1 under their royalty scheme.
Yep, because they were going to have. Yeah, they're probably kicking themselves now for saying they were going to do that, because that would have been right there. Although, look, who knows what would have happened, right, if they had to back down. But it was, and I'm proud of gamers everywhere that canceled their subscriptions to D&D Beyond, that basically made them back down, because we wouldn't be seeing Shadow Dark if they. I don't think, or maybe we might have, because when I talked to Kelsey, she said she was going to be happy if she made $150,000. So she didn't think she was going to make that much money, certainly. And I don't think anyone else could have been.
The anti-Woods of the Coast OGL bullshit blowback, and it's lifting her pretty far. That's what I'm saying. She's gonna surpass 1 million. I think it's gonna hit probably. I wouldn't be surprised for 1.25, and I think that is a testament not just of the timing and the community's attitude, but it's a fine piece of OSR ish. I mean, it plays at the table. It played OSR for the random party generator, so I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, you guys had a good time. I thought that was fun. You guys were because those guys, like especially like Joe and them, they'll try to stretch the rules as far as they can get. And so Matt had his hands full.
Joe
trying to keep you guys
a lawyer
alive.
And a rules lawyer, but it was a table full of GMs, which is why I give Matt a lot of credit for when he would make a decision. He'd actually ask. I'm asking the other, DMs at the table how they would rule, which was, I think, pretty insightful. So,
So anyway, so the latest guest, North Texas, probably our last guest, unless we have two more people that we've asked that we're waiting to hear last. If they say last minute, we're gonna maybe three. Actually, there's three. There's three last minute people. No, I'm sorry. There's only two. One of them was Luke Gygax. He is going to the UK Games Fair in June. He can't make it. But we have two more people that if they say yes, we'll have two more guests. But so Kelsey was a surprise guest, but I think she deserves it, and because her game has taken the Kickstarter world by storm, and
Definitely.
And it just seemed like a really good fit to have her run games at the con. So yes, we'll have Kelsey running Shadow Dark, and we will also be having the gentleman below us running Rocket Age, and this is Mr. Ken Spencer, who was just on the show like yesterday. I swear, I just saw
about a month ago. I was dressed in my Viking garb from Northland Saga.
That's right.
Okay.
But now we had him in his Northlands phase. Now he's in his Rocket Age phase, and he's going to tell us about Rocket Age and what Rocket Age is about and what we're looking at here.
Right. So right now we are running the Indiegogo campaign for Arthur's Guide to Martian Life. It is exactly what it says on the cover. It's a guide to life on Mars, to the wild animals and natural ecosystems of Mars. Dr. Arthur Wesley is a reoccurring character in the Rocket Age books. He's a xenobiologist who investigates strange alien life forms, all too often from the inside. Not through dissection. He gets swallowed quite often and has to pass out the other end. But he has brought a collection of new and interesting creatures native to Mars, as well as a look at the major Martian ecosystems and at the animals there that aren't necessarily the sort of thing you see in a role-playing game, because it's not just the creatures you fight, it's what's on the tree next to you, what's in the bushes, what sort of creatures are the foundations of that ecosystem that aren't necessarily given stats, but that help you get immersed in the universe of Rocket Age. So we offer those, and then we offer 20 creatures that will eat your party.
So, well, tell us a little bit about Rocket Age. You've been on the show before and talked about Rocket Age, but that was probably a year ago or more.
A couple years, I think. Yeah.
It's
Rocket Age is the 1938 that never was, and the solar system that should have been. It is a love letter to pulp sci-fi in general. It is chrome rocket ships with fins jetting around the solar system. It is ray guns. It is mutants on the blasted moon of Io. It is the canal civilizations of Mars, the jungles of Venus, the sky islands of Jupiter. It is two-fisted action and the classic pulp sense.
And this sounds very space 1899 or 1889-ish, which I love that. I think that system was kind of an underrated system. Do you have any inspiration from that, or?
A little bit. Most of the inspiration came from when I was growing up, the afternoon TV shows. Quite often there'd be a double feature of half a Flash Gordon serial, well, a 15-minute one, which I guess would be a full one, and Buck Rogers. Plus, I grew up on sci-fi. First movie I saw in a movie theater was Star Wars. Episode 4, before it was Episode 4, when it was just Star Wars. Battlestar Galactica was a show I grew up with. The Buck Rogers, remember, with Wilma Daring and Tweaky.
Tweaky.
Yes. Those are the sort of things I grew up with. And sci-fi has always been one of my favorites when it comes to gaming. Like most people, I started with D&D, and I played D&D for about a year and a half, and then I discovered Star Frontiers and Gamma World and Traveler. And you always come back to D&D, but you're always going off into space to try something new.
Very cool. And also and I'm a big Pulp Fiction fan. I get a huge pulp serial feel about, the old Amazing Stories pulps, and oh gosh, what were some of the other sci-fi pulps? I have a bunch of them. I actually collect pulps along with D&D stuff, and I have a pretty big collection of pulps. Most of them are the Weird Tales variety, but I have a lot of Astounding Stories and Astounding Tales,
Adventures.
Oh yeah, Amazing Event. Yeah, I love those covers. Those are great covers.
Even more recent, Asimov's magazine always had a bunch of great sci-fi in it. Bunch of great short stories. Omni. So that was a little more conspiracy theory.
Oh God,
So,
yeah, I forgot about Omni.
so you this is a, it says here this is a classic and 5e. What's the difference between the classic and I guess 5e obviously uses the 5e
It's 5e.
system.
Classic is the original Rocket Age system. It's a variant of Cubicle 7's Vortex system that we took and made it more pulpy and less Doctor Who run away from the monster and a little more I'm going to punch the alien in the snoot.
Yeah.
So it's a narrative system and a sense you'd be very familiar with. It's 2d6 plus an attribute plus a skill versus a target number. So if you've played anything since Traveler, you've figured out how that system works. But we add a few little twists to it. There's a bit of a narrative story point system for more modern feel, as well as a non-binary task resolution, which is a fun way to say it's not you succeed or fail. It's you succeed, and good things happen, or you fail, and hey, guess what? It gets worse.
That seems like a lot of so a lot of thinking on your feet if you're the GM to have to work out that kind of stuff and throw out all kinds of cool things that can happen.
Oh yeah, and all of our adventures have plenty of outlines so that you know how that's going to work as the GM to guide you. And things like Arthur's Guide, every monster in it, every alien creature has 2 to 3 story hooks. So flipping through the book as a busy GM, right there next to the stat block is this is how I use it in my game.
Very cool.
Okay.
So
How that balancing that system with 5e, because those two don't seem to match up for that degree of granularity.
They aren't quite the same. That's why we don't do dual stat books. They're different books. So Arthur's Guide to Martian Life Classic is its own book. Arthur's Guide to Martian Life 5e is its own book. The fluff is the same. The stats are different, and they're in separate covers. But the way we do it is we made our own Rocket Age 5e core book, which, if you know 5e, it's got its own classes, it's got backgrounds, it's got ship combat. It goes in the direction that 5e normally doesn't go because it expands beyond the limitations that 5e imposes on, well, creators quite often.
Fair enough. So now, since you have both 5e and the original, these are different pledges, I guess. Like you back for either or both.
You pick which one you want. You can get both if you want. We have PDF and POD. Of course, you get the PDF with the POD version. Right. And when you back, you can choose which one you want. Do you want Classic? Do you want 5e? Do you want to add the other one on and have both? We've got a couple of fans who like both because they want the full set.
So how are the sales going for the different versions?
Normally, we generally see about a 50-50 split. Not this time at all. Classic is selling 15-2.
Whoa.
Well.
Yeah.
Is that the elephant in the room you're talking about this?
Well, I'll tell you something. So this is a little peek behind the curtain here. Through no fault of his own, because 5e didn't do something stupid. 5e did nothing stupid. 5e is just 5e. Through the fault of the parent company, I have heard through the grapevine that 5e Kickstarters, Indiegogos, and sales period are not doing that great after the OGL fiasco.
That was actually one of our worries when launching this, because we didn't know. We've ran, for Rocket Age, we've run one Classic only campaign. That was Imperial Jupiter back when we first started as a company. We've ran one 5e only campaign late last year for Blood Red Mars 5e. And we weren't certain how things are going to go here because this is our first Classic and 5e at the same time crowdfunding campaign. And our Classic fans have turned out for this. And we love them. They've been with us since the beginning, and we want to keep them with us. And we want to keep our 5e fans with us too. But it's just not as robust of a 5e turnout as we are expecting.
And what, like I said, that's not 5e's fault. 5e is the
No.
same game system it was 3
Right.
months ago or 4 months ago. And I don't know, Ken, maybe if you'd done this 6 months ago, maybe 5e would be equal to, Classic. But it's just got a bad taste in people's mouths, when they talk about 5e, because they see 5e as supporting WotC. And I've heard this from many people. I can't reveal names, but yes, there's been a backlash against 5e. So I'm glad you're at least you're showing the Classic. The Classic seems to be doing really well. Then that's great.
It is, and in general, sales have been up this year for Classic. Like I said, normally it's 1-to-1, and Classic has been pulling ahead for our sales across the board, which we love to see. I mean, Classic is where Rocket Age started, and it's where Rocket Age is going to stay. And we're not going to leave our 5e fans behind, because it's not their fault that WotC is causing issues and problems and being a bully. But it is an interesting data point to consider. We'll have to see where things go in the future.
Oh boy, this is going to be a great show, because I'm going to get to throw in a bunch of unsolicited opinions. But well, I'm just saying, look, a lot of things have to go right for WotC in the next year or so, leading up to the 50th anniversary. And I think one of the things that they really, really want to see happen is 6e just blow up and take off. And the first thing was going to be canceling the OGL. Didn't work out very well. They had to backtrack, although they still may cancel the OGL. I mean, they haven't said they want. Their inability to say they're not going to cancel it tells me that eventually they will cancel it.
Right.
Then we have the movie coming up, which they're counting on quite a bit. The reviews have been good from reviewers. I don't know about fans, but reviewers have liked it so far. The supposed TV show, I don't know if is that this year, or did they just announce it this year?
2024.
Yeah. So they have a lot of irons in the fire, but they really, really need new D&D 1, 6e to really take off. But 5e is immensely popular, and the more I look at it, this just seems to be paralleling what happened with 3.5. When 3.5 was an immensely popular version, everybody loved it. There was really no reason to cancel it. I don't think sales were flagging that much. And for those who know their D&D history, it was canceled not because it wasn't doing well, but it was because WotC wanted more control over their product.
Right.
4E was a way to bypass the OGL by saying, okay, well, now you have to have a special license to write for 4E. You can't just write for 4E. You can only write for 3E or the OSR type stuff. You can't do that for 4E. Man, I just see a lot of parallels to what's going on right now with 5E, because I think 5E is going to be fine in the next few years. People are still going to play 5E. It's the most popular version of the game that has ever been published.
It is, but I do think that 5e is going to suffer, not just because of the reboot that's coming up next year, but they're suffering from the bad OGL fiasco that unforced foul the.
Yeah, like I said, 5e hasn't done anything wrong, but they're suffering for it. They're suffering for the sins of their father. They haven't done anything wrong.
And you can argue whether we'll get to this later, but you can argue whether it was greed or other reasons that caused that. But getting back onto topic for the moment, now I remember Rocket Age. Didn't that first was it released on like Free RPG Day? Like I don't know.
No, it was. I wrote it. I developed it myself.
Okay.
I shopped it around to several different publishers. Cubicle 7 picked it up, and that was the original publisher of Rocket Age. I wrote it working at Cubicle 7. And it was released in 2013, and then we won an Emmy in 2014. Actually, a Judges Spotlight Award, naming me as the Judges Spotlight for that year. And then from there, I continued to work at Cubicle 7. When I left Cubicle 7, I bought out Rocket Age, and I bought all existing stock,
Okay.
Everything. Yeah,
Nice.
a semi arrived in my front of my house and dropped a pallet of books in my front yard and drove away. So,
Just throw it out of the car. The van door open. They toss it out. Just
Find space for this. Build a shed.
yeah, well, my wife came home from work that day to find 1,000 units of Rocket Age books sitting in the dining room.
Oh, I'm sure.
Wives love that stuff. Yeah, I know my wife. My wife loves that. Yeah, she digs that.
So once I explained that this wasn't miniatures,
this is not my Kickstarter.
Well, I told her I'd made an order at Reaper the week before. I was like, I ordered some stuff from Reaper. She's like, yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
No, she's been part of the company from the beginning. She's the co-owner. She does a lot of our layout and our graphic design. Not for Arthur's Guide. We actually had a friend of ours in the gaming group who's a graphic designer who said, I'd like to take a crack at one. So we're like, here you go. Have fun with it. And that's Josh Lambert. He's done the layout for us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember Rocket Age. Maybe it was a quick start version then, but there was a thin booklet sized Rocket Age. I remember taking this thing to work with me and reading it on my meal period, going, this is a cool little setting, kind of feeling a little bit like Flash Gordon, but not with the alien races going on. A little bit like John Carter of Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Little bit of space. 1890 was it 1889?
1889.
Yeah. No, the Games Workshop version back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
It had all these little feelings to it, but of course I wasn't gaming back then actively, so there was no way for me to really put. I was doing a little OSR, but nobody in my group was going to play something that wasn't pure OSR. But
that's a shame.
Yeah. Now we stretch our wings a little bit. Now we've played things like Alien and stuff. So maybe there's hope. But no, they were very much a group of grognards. So,
well, if they're new to Rocket Age, we are offering in our Indiegogo add-ons for the original core book and Blood Red Mars, which is the Mars source book. Yeah. Get them out of the.
Tempt me not, Satan.
I'm not going to say get them out of the dining room because we've all shipped them off to a warehouse now, but
you have warehouse fulfillment. You don't have to do it yourself.
Well, yeah. Oh, geez, that was a thing. Especially with the original first 1,000 some odd units, we had a logo made up for Why Not Games and printed out on stickers, and I was stickering over the Cubicle 7 logo on every book.
Oh, that must have been a pain in the ass. So sorry.
It was a week's work. 10 hours a day.
Yeah, I think I would have been like, yeah, as they ship out, I can't do so many. Just can't do it. So now, when I was going through the Indiegogo page, I want to say Kickstarter page, but it's not an Indiegogo. This female robot with a trident, or is she maybe not a robot? I'm not sure.
She's a Robo Queen.
All right, so I was right.
Queen robot, yeah.
I should have read completely through. Because I was seeing what I thought was flesh on that face. I was a little confused. But that's okay. But the artwork looks nice. Who did the art on that stuff?
Eric Utterback. He's a local artist. He's a freelancer. When he did the art for us, we were one of his first clients ever. And he had just finished his art schooling. And he was very excited. And we worked with him to help develop a style and help him match the existing Rocket Age style. And I think he's done an excellent job. Rocket Age art is all black and white for our interior art, because we want to get that feel of a 1930s, 1940s movie serial. So we don't want to be like, oh, well, here's a bunch of color, and color's nice, but we want those hues, those shadows. We want Bogart with a ray gun to be stepping out into the light from the Venetian blind sort of feel to Rocket Age. So we stick with black and white interiors.
Oh, very good. That's actually pretty cool sensibility. I like that.
And the covers themselves aren't extremely busy. I'm looking at them right now, and I like that. They look very clean. They remind me a lot of the those old digests from back in the 30s and 40s that you used
Well,
to.
and what Eric is not saying too is when you get old, like Eric and I, busy covers tend to all blur, and we're big on when you get old. You don't care about this when you're young. When you get old, you care about font size. Like who
Oh
cares
my
about
God!
font size?
Don't
But
even get
font
me,
size
don't
is a
get me
pet
started
peeve of
at
mine.
Mike.
Oh boy, font size is a huge pet peeve of mine. If your audience is mainly old school gamers, which some products are, please God in heaven, make the font size big enough for people for our age to read without our glasses on. And the same thing with really 3E started this trend where they had these really you'd open the interiors and there's all this stuff going on the back of the page and you can't read it. You're like, what? I can't read it. There's too many things going on. So yes, a very clean style. I really appreciate it at this point in my life. I
Mike's not
appreciate
saying the gaming question. I will say the one that sounds like that to me would be Numenera. I got those books from the Kickstarter.
Oh, I've read. Yeah, I have a Numenera book. Yes,
and I put it, and I went, I can't read this shite.
The one that got me the worst was Mage the Awakening. I think that was the new World of Darkness one. Because the chapter and section headings were in metallic ink, which is fine. Oh. But at the time, I was a smoker. So I would get a new book in the mail and I would go out onto the deck and I'd light a cigarette and I'd sit out and enjoy the day and have a smoke and read my book. And you can't read metallic ink in bright sunlight. It blurs. You can't see it.
I wouldn't, metallic ink. There are certain things that sound great and cool in concept, but then practicality kicks it to the side, and that sounds like one of them. Yeah.
So we go for with our covers it's very reminiscent of the pulps. It's also reminiscent of the movie posters, mid-century movie posters. And that's one of the looks we're going for with our covers is something bold colors, very geometric, a little Art Deco in there.
Yeah,
very clean design. I mean, Rocket Age 5e is probably our busiest cover, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. I would agree. Blood Red Mars. That's a beautiful cover. It's just. I like the outlines. You know what's there, but it's not being shoved in your face. It's very, very nice. And this is nice too. It's got a nice amount of action without being busy.
That one was a bit of debate in-house. I wanted to make some folks, my wife and some of our friends who we usually run ideas by our gaming group because we've known them forever. Right. And they've always they've been our cheerleaders in the back. I often say that one of my best friends, Will, I like to bring him to conventions with him because he's my hype man. I mean, if I'm like, I don't know if I can really go out there and run an event, he's like, you can do it, Ken. You're one of the best GMs I've ever known.
We always got to have, that's good to have that guy.
So the debate was, do we want to focus on the Rocket Ranger, on the hero on the cover, or do we want to focus on the villain, on the Warwalker? And we went with the Warwalker because the artist's sketch was just so compelling with this thing looming over you, over the hero. It made me feel like it was the cliffhanger at the end of the episode.
Jen mentioned something. Are you going to be at GaryCon next week?
Yes, I am.
Okay. There we go. And you're going to bring
Rocket Age on Thursday in costume. I'll have my rocket pack. It's over in the corner there. I need to repair it. My better half threw a suitcase on it by accident on the way back from Gamehole Con, loading the car.
That sucks.
And it's nothing that some glue won't help.
I think the weather's going to be good. I don't think you're going to have ice, snow, and rain like they did last week. So I think you'll be okay next week at Gary Con.
It's Midwest, so who knows?
Yeah. Well, I think we have here in Texas. We're past the winter. It's 60 degrees, so we're okay. But yes, Zach and I have driven up to Gary Con in a blizzard. It has happened, so you just never know what's going to happen. Now, I like that they seem to be having it a little later. That they used to have it, I want to say late February, early March, and that weather was really unpredictable.
It used to be over my birthday. I've actually celebrated my birthday at Gary Con a couple times.
Okay, so yeah, they used to, it was rough, but they just kind of like how Alex has done Game Hole now. Game Hole's earlier in the fall. He has it about mid-October rather than the first week of November. That seems to have helped quite a bit because I've been at Gary Con when they've had, Game Hole Con when they've had ice and snow.
Yeah.
So, and I think Eric was there with us when we had the dusting of snow one day. We woke up and everything was white.
Yeah, you were. It was like, wait a second. When is it? But then again, like you said, it's the Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know. It could be it could be a blizzard. It could be 75 degrees and sunshiny. We won't know until we get there. In fact, it could be both on the same day.
Yes, and yes, that's what's tricky about driving up there. Because I pretty much just drive to conventions now. I'm not going to fly unless I'm forced at gunpoint. So yeah, I worry about stuff like that. But look, I think if you're driving not too far, you should be able to make it to Gary Con without very problems.
For me, it's about a 6.5, 7 hour drive.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not too bad.
No, it's doable. It's long, but doable.
And it's mostly up through the middle of Illinois, which is just cornfields. It's just flat and straight.
That's not too bad.
And you actually know how to handle bad weather up there. Texas, we have like 3 ice trucks the entire state, and so yeah, when it gets icy up here, they just kind of throw sand on the road, and just cross their fingers, and I hope that people don't drive too fast because we don't have the infrastructure here to deal with that.
Oh yeah, we moved down to the southern part of the state from Indianapolis 16 years ago, and no one here. It's like living in the South. There's half an inch of snow on the ground and people are freaking out. There's no bread in the store. There's no milk.
Because, you got to run and get bread and milk. Yes,
exactly.
Obviously.
And I never understood that. Why it was those 3 things in particular. And my wife said it's because people make French toast.
That's not a bad explanation.
It's not a bad idea. When we get snowed in, we have French toast.
Well, it's all breakfast foods, right? So I guess you need to have something that you can have your breakfast with, start out your day, so you can get out there.
Exactly, and you're snowed in, so you go back to bed. Breakfast.
Well, yeah. Jenna's really pumping you up with her comments.
Boy, she's Jen the suck up over here. Gee whiz. No, she's very sweetly tried to pump NTRPG Con along with her. She and Gary have some kind of a thing going here because her and Gary are trying to pimp North Texas. But now you'll be at North Texas too.
Yes, I will.
Ken will be there. His special guest. Ken's been there before, but this is his special guest, his tour. So treats Ken very well there. And you'll be running Rocket Age and hopefully you'll have some stuff for sale there because I noticed that our fine friends at Frog Out Games do not have a booth at North Texas. So
really?
No, they do. They are not going to. So we're going to have to figure out some way to sell Rocket Age there at the. At North Texas.
Well, our first con is Why Not Games was Gen Con, I think 2017, and I was selling books out of the back of my car in the parking lot.
we could accommodate that in North Texas. Yeah. So one year, very famously, a couple that has come to our convention quite a bit, and they had a bunch of stuff and they're about to have a baby and they needed money. And they said, is there any way we could sell this here? I said, we don't really have any table space. And the guy said, can I just sell it out of my trunk in the parking lot? I said, as long as the security guard doesn't throw you off, sure. And so literally he popped open his trunk. He had all this really kick-ass old school stuff in there. and people were running out the parking lot with wads of cash, and it looked so shady, because he just look around, pop the trunk. Okay, yeah, here's some classic warfare, and here's a cordite steel. Okay, there we go.
Well, as Bob G's asking if he's not seen me, I submitted a Rocket Age event for North Texas for this year.
We'll see what Gary says.
So
no, Gary says no booth or room sponsorship this year. Sad face for Frog God. So Frog God doesn't really care about North Texas, is what I'm getting anymore. Wow, that's tough. That's tough to be rejected by them, because they used to be really good friends of ours. But
well, there's other ways to sell other than booths, out of the back of your trunk.
Yeah, I tell you what, if you have to, if you get to where you have to, we'll sell it out of the. I have my own booth there. I like you, Ken. I'll sell your stuff there, because I'm not
okay, sure.
I can always sell your stuff out of my booth and help you out there.
We can work a deal out, yeah.
Because Frog God apparently doesn't really care about Ken Spencer anymore, which is weird, because you have done so much stuff for them. How many titles have you written for Frog God now?
I don't know.
Quite
15,
a few.
20 maybe.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's like the Ken Spencer show over at Frog God.
Counting all the short PDFs, there's about 100 of those.
So we started a rumor now. Bob G, Frog God Games is mad at you.
I had nothing to do with it.
Well, you know what? And Bill Webb isn't coming to the con this year either. Wow, this is starting to look like a conspiracy. This is. Did somebody not tell me and Gary what happened here? So
hey, you get me though as a special guest. So I guess I'm the consolation prize.
Yeah, it balances out, right? In the end.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Bill Webb, Ken Spencer, sure, yeah, that'll work. I'm all for that. I mean, what has Bill done lately? I mean, nothing. Come on. The guy sits in his hot tub and drinks booze, so that's it. I mean, he hasn't done anything besides that for the last 5 years. See, I'm waiting for Jen to say something. Okay. Frog Gang is not mad at Gary or Mike. They just don't want to run a table this year is what it boils down. Well, okay, so I'm going to pull back the curtain. Jen and Zach are volunteers at the con. They help us run things. And without Bill being there or anything like that, there's really no reason for them to have a table, because they don't have anybody to run a table. Mm-hmm. So, and they're going to be helping us, helping Gary and I. So really there's no time to be running a table there. They usually get a room and they run games out of the room and they sell stuff out of the room, but there's really no point doing that if just Jen and Zach are coming. So that's what happened.
And I spend all my time running events, so I don't have time for running a table as well.
Well, we had the Jen show already in December. We could probably have her. I mean, apparently she is a hit, so I guess we could have her on whenever her schedule. Well, our schedule's pretty full.
Our schedule's pretty full, folks. Just to give you a little peek behind the curtain.
Oh my goodness!
We have Ken this week. All right, we've got Yuri, best known from his Google Plus days. Yuri Kurlianchik, and I'm fucking.
I can't pronounce his last name. I cannot pronounce his last
name. Yuri produces a lot of old school and new school RPG stuff. He's been very prolific.
He wrote a Frog God Games module about 10 years ago.
Right, yeah.
Yes, he did.
Following that, James Shields, the artiste.
Mm-hmm. Who, by the way, did the North Texas logo this year.
Very nice.
It looks wonderful. It looks great. Go to the North Texas RPG Con page on Facebook to see that. It's really incredible.
Alex Macris will be following that. Mr. Venture Conqueror King.
Yes, Venture Conqueror King. Yes.
Following that, Greg Christopher.
Who I don't know. I don't think he's done anything in the business. So I don't know.
No. Greg's done absolutely nothing.
Yeah, he's on the Friday night show, so we thought we'd throw him a bone. So,
and then later in April, dates to be still determined. Kelsey from the Shadow Dark RPG,
who by then she might be a millionaire by then.
Yeah.
She might be talking to a millionaire.
Too big for us. She might be like, I'm holding out for Professor GM.
That's the question I'm going to ask. I'm going to say, can we call you? Are you a millionaire? Well, I don't know. Kickstarter takes 10%, so she may. If she just barely gets over.
That takes like 5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she might not quite be a millionaire, but that's a pretty good. That's like winning the lotto. That's not bad. So we'll have to ask her about that. So yes, we'll have Kelsey on in April, and then
Yeah.
who else do we have? We have somebody else.
Jeff Jones, who's been my layout guy on the Torchlight, Continual Light. Whenever I actually figure out what we're going to do with that, because the OGL drama pushed that back. But Jeff is also doing a lot of layout work for Emperor's Choice. The
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
Who are great dudes, and they have great product, and they've reprinted pretty much all the best stuff. So yes, definitely. If you were an Arduin fan, check out Emperor's Choice. They were super nice to Eric and I, and sent us like a load of stuff, and which I'm still going through because it's just so amazing to have all that stuff. First of all, to have it. What did we say about font earlier? You can actually read the Emperor's Choice stuff. Because they've made the font size bigger on the original.
You couldn't read the originals if you go back. I went back to my originals. I was just like, but you can go back to that. Phantom Jen's telling Bob where he can go. Oh no,
where he can go. Oh,
wait. Jen will assist you with your purchases. Okay, moving on.
Alyssa is at the show this year. She had to cancel last year. She had a bunch of personal things come up, but she and her buddy Jack will be at the show this year. We will have Alyssa fed, and she's going to be running games. I think she's running Call of Cthulhu.
I think referring to this show.
Oh, this show. Oh, we'd love to have Alyssa. We need to get her on, Eric.
Yes.
Let me talk to her. I bet we can have her on in April, May. Sure, definitely. Yeah. I'm sorry, I thought you meant North Texas, but yeah, she's going to be at North Texas.
Leading up to the con. Oh, by the way, Ken, your events are as follows.
Yes.
Event 188. Whose game is this anyway? Sunday at 10 a.m.
And then event 169, Crashed on Mars. Schedule pending. Ooh, sounds
good. Pending. Pending is one of my favorites.
We don't have a time of day for you yet, but we're working on it. Don't worry. You're in good hands.
We're gonna. Gary and I were just talking today. When I was talking to Gary about Kelsey, and he had to send Kelsey her info packet. I am so pumped about this show. There's going to be so many good games this show, so many great special guests, and so many people that have not been special guests before. Because one of the things that Doug and I said we were going to do, but we just kind of paid lip services. We need to have new guests every year, but we just kept having the same guests. And Gary and I really opened it up, and we tried to turn over about 1/3 of our guests every year. So Ken is the recipient of that because Ken gets to be a special guest this year. We're hoping to have a lot of new special guests in the years ahead because let's face it, guys like Jim Ward and Tim Kask and the old school guys just can't make it to these I mean, they're just getting to the point where they can't travel. I mean, Tim's show with us was his last show was last year, and he told us that because he can't travel. Yeah. Traveling's not, it's just tough for him.
They're turning themselves over. Okay,
right.
You're getting to the age where it's like no longer can do it. There's a number that we're blessed. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to embarrass any of them. But we're blessed that they are coming to these conventions. Folks, now is the time to strike. Before people go, oh, I'm just so happy that Eric Tenkar is still making it to a convention.
Well, but
when you get to that point, you've already lost.
Dennis Sester, who made it to our first convention, and he's in our North Texas Hall of Fame. He is going to make it back here for the first time in 5 years, and the man's in his 80s. He's an older man. And, and luckily he lives in Austin. He can just drive up. It's like a 3-hour drive because he doesn't really go to conventions. It's just tough for him. He's an older gentleman. I mean, great dude and super fun and creator of Bunnies and Burrows and the Druid class in D&D. I mean, the guy is amazing. I think he's an astrophysicist also, which is amazing. And so, yes, Dr. Cetera. But yeah, I mean, he's just going to be coming to our convention because he's so close. But he's getting to the age where we expect, one day he'll say, I just can't make it, guys. And we'll understand because, he'll just be hitting that time of his life when he just can't make that drive. And so if you get a chance, and Eric and I talk about this all the time, definitely go to cons and see these guys and say hi and tell them how much their work means to you. I know Eric and I know these people. I mean, Ken knows these people too. They appreciate it when you say stuff like that. They really do. They really appreciate it. And I mean, find Ken and tell Ken you really like, all the hard work he's done for for Frog God Games too. I mean, he's done so much good stuff. People really appreciate that stuff. I know that. I try to tell these guys. I used to not really say a lot, and I remember the first 4 or 5 conventions we had, Eric. I really didn't get any autographs, and I really didn't even sit down and talk to these guys very much. And then I finally sat down and said, "What am I doing? These guys are right in my backyard for 4 days,
Right?
And they're just there. I need to start interacting with them." And so I started talking to Errol Otis and Alan Hammock and those guys, and it was great because then you start getting them to sign things and talk to them, and it just changes everything because you're like you just don't know. I mean, Errol hasn't been back in about 5 or 6 years. I mean, you think you're going to be here every year, but sometimes they can't make it. And then we have people like Jim Ward who had health issues. He really only goes to GaryCon now. He just can't make it to other cons because of his health issues. Same with Tim Kask, and so yeah. And I mean, and the same probably to Eric and I pretty quick. No, I'm just kidding. Eric and I are in great shape. We're in great shape.
Yeah.
We're doing wonderful.
So, Mr. Spencer, you have another event, one night in Herat.
Yes.
10 a.m. Saturday.
Oh, yes, indeed. That is going to be a Northlands themed one. One of the projects I'm working on at Frog God Games is a monster book for, and I guess we haven't officially announced it, but well, we kind of have with this event coming at North.
You heard it here first.
So, we're going to venture and take a little tiptoe one of my favorite systems into Savage Worlds, and we're going to do a Tome of Horrors Savaged. And at North Texas, the event One Night in Herat, I'm going to take my Northland Saga. I'm going to take Beowulf, and it's going to be a fight off the horde of monsters event. And Why Not Games and Frog God Games will be giving awards, be giving out prizes for Last Hero Standing, Best Death Speech, and Messiest Kill. and I've played in a lot of these Last Man Standing sort of tournament style events. And the thing that's always bothered me is you block out 4 hours at a con, and then if you have my dice luck, you're done in 15 minutes. So what do you do with the rest of your time? I will hand you a monster sheet, and you get to take over one of the monsters.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And still score Messiest Death. So good time for all.
Bad Mike, you're running one of the B modules?
Gary is trying to beat me down to do because for those that don't know, I used to run B1 and Search the Unknown every year, and COVID came and I stopped running it, and I've been trying to help out Gary and I just and Doug when Doug was sick, and it was just tough, and so I stopped running it about 3 years ago, and Gary is on this crusade to get me to sign up, sign the game in and run it again. So I'm getting about 50% of the way there. So we'll see.
Lundman has a question for Ken. Do you have a bucket list title or game setting you would like to work on?
Yes, indeed. I have a long list of settings I'd like to work on. Why Not Games started because I and a good friend of mine, Sam Parrish Dickey, we were sitting in a coffee shop. She's an artist. We were sitting in a coffee shop. We had never gotten a chance to work together on a project. And we were both just sitting there drinking coffee and complaining about the, idiotic freelance projects that we had to do to make ends meet, and I said, man, Sam, I wish we could just write whatever games we wanted. And she says, why not? And I said, well, because, and I couldn't come up with a good reason. So we started Why Not Games right there. She sketched out the logo on a napkin at the coffee shop. And within, a week, we were incorporated and off and running. So Why Not Games is a lot of, this is what I want to do. This is my bucket list. This is my chance to publish the games I want to. Right now, I'm working on a setting that's definitely going to be Savage Worlds. We may do an OSR 5e version of it because it's a fantasy setting called Heartlands. It is instead of using Europe as the basis for your map, we're using the Midwest.
Oh.
The American Midwest. And it's drawing of myth of and legends of the American Midwest, history, that sort of thing. But it takes place in our future. after there's been a confluence of spheres and our world was reshaped into a fantasy world. So it's generations after that. So it's got a little post-apocalyptic vibe to it. It's a little bit of real world Wabash Valley and Ohio River Valley, and a little bit of fantasy and some legend and myth mixed all together.
Damn.
That's a Why Not Games product.
That's pretty cool. John Miller, Ken, we really like the Northland Saga. Haven't played any of the Frog Eye Games modules yet, and I'm still collecting them, but looking forward to playing them. So.
Oh, good. Thank you.
They're really good too. I mean, just if I could jump in, I first came across Ken when he did his first Northlands Saga, which is NS 1, 2, 3, and 4 for our games. And those ever reprinted? Those were reprinted, right, Ken, in the rule book when the Northland Saga came out?
Northland Saga Complete, yes.
And I always talk about this. Those were really, really good because they weren't like most D&D adventures, because they were definitely set in a Viking Northlands kind of area. And one of my favorites, I just slipped my brain, was the Oath of. You know what this is, kid?
Death Coast Then Oakenfist.
Yes, that is a great adventure where the players are at a meeting in a Viking place, whatever. And as they're there, they're under what's called hospitality rules or whatever. So, you basically, you have to help out the guy that's there because you're his guest. And this vengeful spirit comes in. I mean, if I'm messing this up, Ken, let me know. But
you're doing it. You're doing good.
This vengeful spirit comes in, kills the king, and with his dying breath, he tells you got to find out what this thing is and deal with it. And so the characters are under this obligation, which is a cool way of doing an adventure. That they have to find out who killed him and why. And it's just a really good. I mean, I love stuff like that. It's just not a traditional. You're all in a bar, and a guy with a floppy wizard hat comes in, and he sits in the corner, and he's got an eye patch on one eye, and he's got 3 fingers. And, we're gonna go ask him. Yawn. We've all done that, right?
He was drawn by artificial intelligence.
So yeah, I love the Northlands adventures because they all had kind of a cool hook to them that had to do with the Northlands. Actually, had to do. I mean, you couldn't just take these adventures and port them over to regular, Tolkien world or whatever. If you're running a Tolkien, these were set in the Northlands, and they used a lot of Ken's, as we've documented before. Ken's an archaeologist. I mean, used a lot of Ken's real life history stuff, and so yes. I love those adventures. His stuff is really, really good. If you can find them, grab them. So, but they're hard to find.
We just ran the Indiegogo for the new version, New Northland Saga, where we're adding more and revisiting some of the older adventures and updating them, because I'm a better writer than I was, 12 years ago? 13 years ago? When
it was like 2010, 2012. So yeah, it's been that long.
Those were some of my first publications.
Yeah. Yes, they're worth hunting out, and they're really good stuff. And his new stuff is too. That all the Northland stuff is. If you're going to run a Vikings campaign, it's a no-brainer. Grab these and work them in, because all the plot lines will definitely work in.
Yeah, it will fit in any Viking theme part of your campaign world. I know some people who have put them into Paizo's Land of Lenorian Kings and just dropped it right in there. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just Northlands, but if you've got a Viking part of your campaign world, the Northlands adventures just drop right on in. And if you don't have a Viking part of your campaign world, then I don't think you're trying hard enough, and we can talk.
You need to get your act together.
You need to get it together. Exactly.
Oh, and the bad guys in the Dying Oath are really awesome too. He's got some good. They're not.
If the main bad guy, you have a chance as the players to accumulate some information on him, and each piece of the information is almost a mini quest to go find.
And the
And
more
if
you
you
get on
find
there, the easier the battle will be at the end. The more you know about this guy.
exactly. But if you just charge straight out right to his burial mound and say, "I'm going to take you on now," then and you're going to get crushed.
Which is a great mechanic, by the way, because you're letting the characters choose their doom. If they decide, oh, we're just going to go kick this guy's butt, like, okay, let's see how this works out.
I'm a big fan of player agency. If you give the PCs enough rope, they will hang themselves, and that's the best way to handle it. The only time that I really step on player agency is sometimes at the start of a campaign. Rarely in a published adventure I'll do this, but I've done it a few times, is I like to start in media res. So which means in the middle of. For example, we're starting a new Savage Worlds game this Sunday, and it's sci-fi, and it's going to basically be space dungeon crawling. It's a bunch of people salvaging space wrecks. And I'm going to start off the first session after we get the characters made of, okay, here's your 3-dimensional spaceship layout, and here's where your characters are, and here's where the giant hungry alien monster is. So let's go ahead and go for initiative and get started right now. So they're not meeting in a bar, they're meeting in the hallway as they run from this thing.
Nice.
We should probably do a show sometime, because I'm real big. I just got through watching a bunch of Kelsey's videos on YouTube, and she does some about, how to do this, or what, how to little GM tricks, whatever. I always think one of the best things you can do, because I've seen a lot of con adventures, and honestly, I think a lot of people don't do con adventures right, because you're usually sitting there for 4 hours only. You have to do things. You have to get started right away. You can't just sit there and spend this long time, doing whatever. And I like to have a combat almost immediately in my games, because I want the players to learn their characters because I almost do pre-gens. Pre-gens are so much easier. Here's your pre-gen, just do whatever. And then I'll get into combat like immediately, like the first room or on the way to the dungeon, they're going to get into combat so they can start figuring out what is this guy's abilities, what do they do. And I really think that helps players get into the game very quickly, because I've seen too many con games that the DM drones on about the setting, and yes, for 2,000 years the seers of Arcadus have. I'm asleep. No. I want. So let's have something happen right off the bat. So I like your idea, Ken. I think that's a really good idea.
And it's especially with con games. Crashed on Mars starts with your rocket drive has gone out, the engine room's on fire, you've lost control of the ship, and Mars is coming up very quick. Okay, what do we do?
Nice. See, that's what I'm talking about right there.
And I think that's a great way to it's a great way to get a game started in general, is with an action scene.
Your characters will wake up, right? At least in that. Oh, whoa, hold on! I got to do something right away. I was going to go get a coffee and no donuts, no coffee. Boom!
You better come to my table with your coffee and your Danish.
I once had a con game where I started off. It was set in the during the Greyhawk Wars, and I started off. So I mean, I don't want to go into detail of the Greyhawk Wars, but there are war in the world of Greyhawk, and all these evil forces attack the good forces, and so. It starts out. You have these pre-gens. They're all guards along this tower. I think in Furiundi, and it starts out. You're there. You see a guy on a horse coming. And he's running, and his horse dies under him. And he runs up to the wall and he goes, "Let me in!" And right behind him, you see this gigantic horde of evil. I mean, just thousands of demons, orcs, whatever, and they're all coming towards you. Okay, what are you guys going to do? Are they going to let the guy in? Are they going to just say, we're out of here? Are they going to try to, if you try to fight, you're going to die. The whole adventure is basically you escaping that fortress and having to you have to warn the cities to the south what's coming. And so that's really your point, is you really need to get out of there and warn it. So players really like that one, because first of all, they're all fighting with each other within 1 minute. I'm getting the hell out of here. No, we got to help the guy on the ground. There's an army of demons coming. Everybody's like going back, yelling. And so I think that's a good idea, just to start right there. There's an event, something's happening. What are you doing? You're sitting around the table, and what beer are you going to order at what's your character going to order? And or the worst one is you wake up in a cell and the king walks in and you're like, oh my God, not this.
Oh yeah.
Okay, guys, you got caught in the bar last night and you were fighting, and so you're going to have to go on this little mission for me. Otherwise, please, no.
Well, and it all depends on what you want the session or the adventure or the campaign to go. There's a big difference between okay, something hit the ship, the engine's on fire, the engine rooms, the gyros are gone, your ship's computer is crashed, you're heading towards the planet, and the ship's on fire. There's one way out. It's the airlock, and only one of you can pass through at a time. That's an entirely different setting.
I like that one too. You're gonna have fist fights at the table right off the bat. My character goes first. Boom! I punched your character. No, I'm first. No, I just shoved you out of the way. You're not first. No, sorry. DM, can he do that?
We'll have to make a ruling on that.
Everybody roll a 20-sided dice, yes.
John Miller, I only ever played a few convention games, and they were all bad. Main problem was, as players, we didn't get our act together and focus, but boring DMs and slow scenario startups were also a problem.
I'm going to tell you this, and Eric and Ken can chime in. Before I started North Texas, I had 20-something years of experience going to conventions, and one of the things I was very determined was that we weren't going to be like other conventions. But I'll tell you, the problems with convention games 99% of the time are the DMs. They don't know how to run a convention game. And I'll give you an example. If you're running a convention game, I'm going to tell you right now, do pre-gens. Don't spend 25 minutes rolling up characters. It's a mood killer. It's an absolute killer. Have the pre-gens ready. Have more than enough that there's extras. Have the characters be choosing their pre-gens. Have them choose it within 5 whatever minutes. Have packs. Here's your equipment. Whatever. You don't have to go shop at the tavern or whatever. And you need to be in the dungeon within 5, 10, 15 minutes. You need to be at the dungeon opening. And so my B1 game, for instance, everybody gets pre-gens. There's 3 places they can stop in the town. They get to make 3 stops. They can only be 5 minutes at the most. And that's the priest, the merchant, the alchemist. And they need to be they're going to be standing in front of the Quascatan, the gates of Quascatan, in 15 minutes. If they aren't through, they're standing in front of the gates of Quascatan. They're all appear there. So if you're haggling with the merchant, it's 15 minutes. Guess what? You're standing in front of the gates of Quascatan. So I just think a lot of DMs aren't aware of how exactly to run con games, and so I don't know what you guys experience, Eric and Kim. But I find that's the problem a lot of times.
For me, it's a little bit different because I run Swords and Wizardry Light, so I let my players bring their characters back every year.
But that's an exception,
but
because it takes you 1 second to roll the character.
Even with brand new players, we're up and ready to run the adventure in 10 minutes. I find that the thing with convention play is pacing. You got to keep that pace going.
Yes.
You got to keep it moving. Don't give them all this time to make their decisions. Make a decision, right or wrong, and make a decision. When they bog down, spending 15 minutes, it's fine in campaign play with your game group.
Sure.
But when you're at a convention and you've got a 4-hour time slot or a 3-hour time slot, you want them to get to the finish line. And it's not going to happen when they spend 20 minutes discussing how are we going to cross this bridge. Do you think it's dangerous? Well, hold on a second. You know what? Why does anybody have? Should I go back to town and get it?
So Eric, I start rolling dice right then. I tell them, if you bog down, I'm going to start rolling wandering monster dice, and I do. I start rolling. Right. I have wandering monsters all set up, and when they start bogging down, I roll the dice, and once they hear the dice rolling, they start making decisions really quickly. Okay, we're gonna go over here. Look, Mike's rolling dice. So I don't want to fight a bunch of kobolds. Let's get out of here.
Well, that's right. When I ran the Mouth of Doom as the 3D terrain, I did 2 things. First off, I threw away all the room information because these players are looking at these rooms anyway. They all see it all. So whatever monsters I'm going to use because I think it's appropriate at the moment. I'm not going to look. I got to keep them moving because if they think they're going to metagame, they're going with when they have the whole adventure, the whole level out in front of them. So you had to keep them time crunch. You got to keep them moving, and that's all I did. You don't give them too much time to get bogged down in tertiary thoughts. But in a campaign game, that's fine because you have all the time in the world, or all the all the
my tip is handouts. Pre-gens, of course, but handouts. If there is going to be something that's going to be the focus of the session, if there's going to be an area they're exploring, give them a handout, give them something to look at and something to help move them along so you don't have to spend as much time explaining. Or the worst is going back to the book and flipping through pages. Well, it looks like this. Run off some copies at Kinko's.
Yeah.
Come out.
Yeah.
Plus, if you are a company, don't litter the world with a bunch of wasted handouts. Put your web page and your booth number on it.
Oh, what a smart man! I like
yes,
that idea, actually.
So I'll tell you. So that I mean, he's not here and he's not listening, so it doesn't matter. But when Rob Kuntz ran games in our first, Rob Kuntz, I guess you'd call him a D&D naturalist or traditionalist. Like he learned how to run games back in the 70s, and they did things a certain way, which we don't do things that way anymore. There's a reason we don't do things this way anymore, because it sucks. And so one of his things was you ran into what you ran into. He didn't care if you walked around the dungeon for 2 hours and didn't have an encounter, which, by the way, a group did. And so after the scenario was over, he said, you guys just missed all the rooms with the stuff in it and the encounters. What the fuck? I mean, throw him an encounter. I mean, you don't have, but he was very much into D&D naturalism. This is the way the dungeon's set up. You go your way you go, and if you don't run into anything, you don't run into anything. And so they had 3 changes of mappers in one game because they got so bad at the maps that the map guy just threw his map down, and then the next guy would take it up and start mapping, and he threw it down. They were so lost in the dungeon, they were wandering around. They wouldn't fight anything because they couldn't run anything, and it was awful. It was horrible. And this is Rob Kuntz, one of the founding fathers of our hobby, but that's just the way. That was just D&D naturalism. That's the way they did things in the 70s. You went to this dungeon, and if you didn't run into anything, you didn't run anything. Nowadays, I think we're a little more sophisticated in figuring out, okay, players should be having a good time at the convention, not running through a naturalistic dungeon where if this happens, it happens. If not, it not. I mean, well, if the party dies in 5 minutes, they die in 5 minutes, and we'll go over here to the sandwich shop after you guys are all killed. No,
we'll move on to the bar.
We're going to try to have a good time.
You get all sorts of player groups. Some of the GMs who have worked for me have had people who are problematic, and we can just leave that aside because those folks are assholes who cause issues. But the 2 groups that I have ran events for at cons that stand out in my mind, I was working for a company in which sadly they were trying to start up and it just didn't work. But they were trying to put out this is back in the D20 boom, a kind of a Aliens as an RPG, but with all the serial numbers filed off. And I'm running con events for them. And this one group, they all got what it was, but they're like, okay, so we fly real low over the colony and we're going to scan for heat signatures. And I'm telling them like, oh, they're all clustered in the grain silo. Yeah, I think this colony is a write-off. We're just going to leave and nuke the place. And I'm like, we are 45 minutes into a 4-hour session, guys.
Write-off. Yeah, well, let's go. Well, what's at the bar? What's going on
They're like, yeah, so we'll get in hop into hyperspace and go to our next mission. I'm like, sure.
Next mission, same as the old mission.
This time they're not in the silo. They're in the gymnasium.
The other one was when I was at Cubicle 7. I was running events for the One Ring, and I had written a couple adventures for Oath of the Rittermark. And as it happened, I had to take over for a person who was running events who wasn't there. So I wasn't running my own adventure. And I must have ran this one. I ran 7 sessions that year at Origins.
Wow.
And the last group on a Sunday afternoon, I explained this to him. I said, I've ran this event 5 times. It's not one I wrote. It's when I ran 5 times, and every time at the fork at the river, the group has gone to the west. So I have no idea what's to the east, but maybe this is the time we can find out. So 20 minutes later, we're into the start of the adventure, and they come to where the trail forks at the river, and they all look together and go, "We go west." I'm like, looks awfully good to the east, guys.
You could just
sunshiny, sweet breeze on the wind. Nope, we're gonna go west.
So somebody who I won't name because I still know the person. My brother was in a con game years and years ago, and they were doing something underneath the planet. And they come to this area where it branches off the right and left, kind of like your example, Ken. And it looked like there was more travel to, let's say, the left side. So they said, you know what, we're going to take the right side because maybe the left side looks too well traveled. We don't want to run into a big party. We're going to try to take them by surprise and go to the right side. So they spend the next hour walking through there, no encounters, nothing. They're walking. They find stuff. They find treasures. They find traps. They find this stuff, but nothing. And so they finally get out of the dungeon, and the DM says, boy, you guys should have taken the left side. All the cool stuff was on the left side. Like,
how would you know?
Why didn't you just put it on the right side? You're the DM. You could do whatever you like. You could have made them have a great game by just switching. That's what I would have done. Just switched everything to their
exist until it's actually in game.
Why did you? It was like he's punishing them because they didn't go down the way that had the most well traveled.
Oh, exactly. And I would have done that, but it was Tolkien, and you just never know if you switch east to west. Someone's going to be a Tolkien scholar and stand up and be like, "Hey, wait a second."
Yeah. Excuse me, Mr. GM.
Excuse me, sir.
In the Cindenarium, when I read the Cindenarium back in 8th grade,
exactly.
I saw this exact same thing, and on page 119, I actually have a friend that can quote this shit.
It is well known that Mirkwood does not have giant spiders on the east side of the road, sir, and you put them on the east side of the road.
And that was the fun thing. Bob G is mentioning Lord of the Rings 5e, Adventures in Middle-earth, when I was at Cubicle 7. That was one of the last things I did there, was work on that and run most of the playtest groups. And that was a fun thing to work on. One Ring was great to work on, but the Tolkien estate can be very finicky. But Tolkien fans are passionate, very passionate. And you have to make sure you get everything right.
As good as a job as Peter Jackson did on the first trilogy, I still run into hardcore Tolkien fans this day that think that's a travesty, which it's the best version we've ever had. I mean, it is. It may be the best version we ever have in our lifetimes. Probably will be. Mm-hmm. And yet they just think, oh, that's just garbage. It's garbage. It's absolute garbage. Dude, what are you going to do? I mean,
he's straight from the text, and he cut out Tom Bombadil.
But that's garbage because he cut out Tom Bombadil, So.
Actually, I'm in favor of that since it's so many years since I've had to work with the Tolkien estate. I'll just you wanted controversial opinions. Tom Bombadil, get rid of him. Cut him out. If you've got a copy of Lord of the Rings at home, take scissors, cut that chapter out. You'll live a better life.
Yeah, not. It's tonally. It makes it's a jarring shift in the narrative. Exactly. I read The Fellowship of the Ring again not too long ago, about 5 or 6 years ago. It's very tonally jarring, and yes, I'm with you. I'm not a huge Tom Bombadil fan, but like you said, there's Tolkien fans that if everything isn't exactly the same way it was in the book, I don't care what your name is or if you're Peter Jackson, whatever, it's terrible. It's awful. And I remember some fans tell me, oh, I never saw the movies because it was not Tom Bombadil wasn't in it. Like, dude, they're the best thing we're ever going to get.
There are Tom Bombadil fans out there. We'd get them at the booth every now and then. They'd come up and be like, you're going to put Tom Bombadil in one of their role-playing games? I'm like,
why? He's the most powerful being on the earth. He could do anything. Why would you put him in a story?
It'd be like putting Galadriel in it for, a tier 1 adventure. We're about to be killed by the orcs, but Galadriel shows up and everything's okay.
Isn't that Rings of Power?
Uh-oh.
I watched the intro and I was like,
I made myself sit through it, and the less that look, I don't even know where to start. Well, Rings of Power needs to be a whole separate episode then, because it's just yikes. I don't know where to start on that one. But look, the elf part, the part with the elf, and was pretty good. I liked the elf dude. The guy who was the elf. He did a good job. But the other stuff, they turned Galadriel into mean elf Karen, which is unforgivable. Because she would have been such a cool character if she wasn't Elf Karen, but they just went that direction for some reason. I don't know why. And yeah,
I just found it very slow paced and dull, and there's a whole lot there they could have done that would have been grand and epic from the start. But don't give me 3 episodes to set up the story. I don't have that time.
It looked great too. That you could tell they spent a lot of. I mean, it looked great. Beautiful. It looked wonderful. But yes, the writing substandard. Not. I mean, just sorry. It just yeah.
They weren't Tolkien scholars for sure.
If you could provide, okay. So Lensman says, if you could provide one OSR company or title, what would it be? This could be an adventure TSR announcement, not release. I wish, and I don't know, maybe this will happen now that all the main people are passed away. I would love for them to re-release the companion stuff. I talk about that a lot, and Lensman knows, he and I are huge Companions fans. That would be I would try to get the rights to the companion stuff and rewrite it to modern day sensibilities. But they had some of the best stuff in the 80s, just third party adventure stuff that was just absolutely amazing. Nobody has done anything like it before since. It was just really good stuff. So that would be. So Ken, what's your OSR company or title that you?
I don't know if you want to call it OSR or not, but Star Frontiers I absolutely loved. I played the living hell out of it as a kid, and then growing up moved on. And I'd love to see a new Star Frontiers, and I'd love to see that setting expanded, because that's the one thing. It was very framework, very broad strokes, but it was the frontier of something else. And there were references to, the core sectors, but you never found out what they were. I would love to see that as a very modern RPG, not necessarily a 5e version of it, but even one that is based off of maybe, I don't know, OSE powered, or powered by one of the more robust OSR systems that has a variety of skills as an option, because it was great. I mean, the Vrusk, the Dralosites, the hover speeder, land speeder things, the whole Crash on Volturnus series of adventures. There was a lot of great stuff there, and it was a lot of fun. And I would love to see it come back. I'd love to see it come back with the full maps and minis, because the miniatures they had for it were fun. The little cardboard chits that came in the box. That was great.
Eric, what do you got? What do you got in the back? You just won the lottery, Eric. What are you going to
I won the lottery? Oh, you know what? I enjoyed playing all this stuff back in the days, but we don't need another D&D clone. We have enough, right? There's nothing I can go, I'd want to bring back AD&D 1E just as it was, without weapon speed and weapon and armor adjustment. And we got the psionics and the bard, who's like 3 triple class characters. And no, I mean, honestly, I would like to see the Judges Guild stuff, the classic stuff, the Wilderlands, all that stuff that we were promised we were going to get, then got fucked royally, because certain individuals had to be their bigoted racist selves. I would love to see that come back in a nice 320-page tome with Rob Conley's maps, and I'd like to be able to say I have a setting that I can use. If it was open and anybody could write in it, that would be awesome. But we don't have that. We never.
It came close, Eric. It was very close to happening.
I know.
And it's just so frustrating how close it came. And yes, because of what happened, that's just gone for probably maybe our lifetimes. We're not going to be able to see that stuff have a comeback, which is really sad.
Yeah. Well, Bad Mike apparently.
I just checked my Discord. I don't see your PM there, so you're going to have to.
You PM the different Bad Mike.
Yeah, wrong band, Mike. I'm looking right now. I'm not seeing it. Lensman. Well, Lensman and I are huge Companions fans, and he's looking for a few titles that are just impossible to find. And so I've tried to help him out as much as I can. But yeah, they're good. If you ever get a chance, if you find a Companions title cheap, which they're not cheap, they're expensive. They've never been reprinted. And the two people, Rice and Wheeler, are both passed away now. So maybe the rights will go to somebody that actually will reprint them, which would be great because those guys never did during their lifetime. It's really sad. But good stuff. I did a review once for they have a product called Plague of Harith. It's really so the plot is you have 30. It's one of those plots where no matter what the character does, the timeline advances. I always like things like that. So your characters have to get with the program. If they don't, things start happening that are not good for them. The longer they don't act, the worse and worse it gets. And it's about a small kingdom this guy who's basically just a regular guy. He doesn't have superpowers. He's decided he's going to take over this village by killing off the king, marrying the princess, and killing off all the king's main advisors. So he slowly begins poisoning and killing off all these guys. And this takes a period of about 30 days. So from the minute the character's going to town, this plot gets set in motion. Meanwhile, there's all this distracting stuff around town. There's orcs that are raiding. There's a whole different subplot about a psychotic serial killer that's killing people and leaving their heads on doorsteps, which has nothing to do with the main plot. But the characters could get totally, and he has this whole background motivation because it turns out he's a half orc, and somebody found out he was a half orc, and he doesn't want anybody to know, so he's killing off everybody that tried to blackmail him and know he's a half orc, and so that's a red herring though. If the characters get off on that, this guy's going to slowly start consolidating, and not only does he start consolidating his rule, he starts figuring out the player characters are a problem, and he starts having them try to be assassinated, killed off. So it all takes, and if you let it go all the way to 30 days, he gets crowned as the baron or king of this kingdom, and you're up the creek without a paddle because then he's going to send his army after you. So but it's just really good. So that's the kind of convoluted, complicated plots they do, and it just unfortunately we just don't see that kind of writing very much. It's very much paint by numbers nowadays. Okay, here's the bad guy, you're the good guy, go do this. I mean, some people try to. There's people that write outside the box. I mean, that are good. Ken writes outside the box. He does some good stuff. And there's a few other guys. I know Matt. I like Matt Finch's stuff. Matt throws in some stuff here and there that's good. But that's one thing that this was in the 80s when everything TSR put out was pretty vanilla. I mean, I know we like to nostalgize. That's not even a word, but I'm gonna make that up. Nostalgize TSR's products in the 80s is like, oh, that was the best stuff ever. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's all right, but we've learned writing D&D modules or writing adventures has become more specialized and better now than it ever was.
Well, it's a technology, and like all technology, and I mean, we tend to think technology has got to be, a cell phone or some such, right? But technology is anything humans create, interact with the surrounding environment with, or alter. And creating something, the way you make a game is a technology that's evolved. And that doesn't mean the newest way is always the best, but it does mean that there have been new ideas. I mean, it's been how many decades?
Oh, yeah, 40 years now. Almost 50.
Almost 50, exactly.
Next year will be 50.
So we have a plethora of ideas and a plethora of technologies to use to make a role-playing game, to make an adventure, to approach this in different ways. And there's no good reason for the cookie cutter approach. And I don't see it as often as it used to be.
That's true. I very, very, very much so. Matter of fact, we probably see it more in con adventures than you do in regular adventures because I got to get this over with in 4 hours. We have to do this. Go here, get this, bring it over here. Boom, there's the adventure there. But yes, the writers, I mean, take anything that's really well. Okay, like take Barrel Maze. Let's take Greg Lake's Barrel Maze. If that was published in 1980, it would be the best thing ever published in the 80s. It would have been. I mean, it's so much above everything published that time. But take almost anything like that published nowadays. I mean, can you imagine the Halls of Arden Vol published in 85, Eric? Oh my God.
Oh, geez.
That would have been the most incredible that would be lauded to this day. Everybody, all they would ever talk about is the Halls of Arden Vault. For those who don't know, it's a gigantic mega dungeon, it's like $5 or $6 long, and it's incredibly detailed, just amazing. But yeah, the stuff now tends to be, I know people get stars in their eyes and they tend to be nostalgic. I look back on one of my favorite series, and I played this series 2 or 3 times, actually probably more than that, the Giant series.
Oh, yeah.
G1, G2, G3.
Right.
I love that series. Those were 8-page modules.
Mhm.
8 pages, no background, like a paragraph background. Here you are, you're going to do this, boom. And then straight into what's in there. And basically it's just a list of monster hit points and what's in the room. And those are classics. Those are classics. But really that wouldn't fly today. If you try to throw something like that out today.
No. And there's no, I recently, a few years ago, we didn't finish it. Everyone died. But that happens. A Savage Worlds campaign, and we hacked the Giant series into Savage Worlds and ran it from there. Because that's my home group. That's our main game. We play Savage Worlds.
Okay.
And we had a lot of fun with it. But yeah, as the GM, it's a whole lot of, okay, I've got 8 pages.
Right.
I think they're actually like 16 or maybe 32. And okay, so I've got to put a story to this thing that's really just a bunch of encounters with a little bit of a thread tying it together. So the fun of that old style is you as the GM have to bring a bunch to the table. And it's not that people don't want to anymore. It's that it's no longer as assumed to be a necessity. And that's great. I think both ways can exist within this world.
Well, but also you got to look at the things that Gary was doing back in the late 70s. Nobody had done yet,
Exactly.
So it's the same thing as like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby writing comic books in the 60s. Well, they were doing stuff that nobody had done yet, so it was new and fresh. Nowadays, if you try to do Spider-Man again, it's like, okay, yeah, it's been done. I mean, what do you give us something new? I mean, Spider-Man was the first superhero that was a goofball kid who was a nerd and nobody liked him, and he got bit by a spider, and then he had to worry about his Aunt May dying. I mean, superheroes back then, no, there were these rich guys or these super powerful guys like Superman that had all this power. They didn't have problems like that. And he was the first. Nowadays, all the superheroes are like that. It's, and the same thing with D&D, the big reveal of the Giant series was you get to the last adventure and it turns out, there's this underground race of evil elves. They controlled everything.
Mm-hmm.
Mind blown. Oh my gosh. Now we got to go underneath the earth and find these guys. Well, you can't do that anymore because it's been done a million times, over and over and over again. And so that the part of the reason they're classics and they succeeded so well is they were doing things that had never been done before because the genre was brand new. These were the first D&D modules ever written. You have to bring so much more to the table now to avoid the, been there, done that syndrome.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you look across, even beyond D&D, I mentioned I went rapidly into Star Frontiers and Gamma World and other into sci-fi gaming after being introduced to role-playing. And those early Traveler modules, they were much the same way. Very bare bones.
Yep.
Crash on Volturnus is the classic starter module for Star Frontiers, and it's packed with detail. But most of that detail is an overland journey and what's on the map.
Right.
And other than, a start, which it had a great start, you're all on a space liner and it gets attacked by pirates and you crash.
John Miller said that Giants and drone modules hold up exceptionally well. B1 and B2. Now, I'll give B1 a lot of credit. B1 holds up because it is the quintessential, at least to me, here's an abandoned fill in the blank, and your characters have to explore it. And it's not just the monsters in there; it's all the cool, weird stuff they find in there. I think that holds up really well. I think Keep does hold up too, but Keep has been done a million times now. Okay, you're in this fortress on the edge of civilization. You have to go clear out the bad guys. Now it's a trope. Now it's something that you just do. I think they do hold up pretty well. I don't know if the Giant series holds up because, like I said, I love it and I've run it numerous times, and one of the funny things, my brother Robert, who was in my first D&D group back in the late 70s. He's probably run through the Giant series 3 times now with different characters. He never remembers anything. I mean, his mind is gone from God knows what he did in the 80s. And so he doesn't remember things. And so it's just new to him every time. But it really is what you bring to the table, because there's not much in there. There really isn't much in the Giant series. Like I said, these are 8-page modules, and they're really just there's no room description longer than that unless there's a treasure listing. Right. And then they go into, okay, here's all the treasure here. It's just really short, concise descriptions, and it's very short. But nowadays, I think we're a lot better at so many things. It's writing out descriptions and motivations and background. I mean, where's the city? And there's no city in the Giant series. They talk about a city, but there's no city there. There's nowhere to go back and refuel and whatever. Nowadays, you read stuff like that. There's a city. There's a town you could go to, and here's different adventures that can go into the town. Here's a side adventure. It's not just about. I mean, what if I decide to go to the Frost Giant Jarl adventure, and they go and they're halfway through the adventure. They go, we want to explore down here in the crevices down there. We don't want to fight the giants yet. I mean, there's nothing for that there, because that's the way. These used to all be tournament adventures. These were tournament adventures where your goal was to go from point A to point B, or point C, and then kill everything point B. And so that is almost every early TSR adventure is a redone, rejiggered tournament adventure. Mm-hmm. And they all have that in their DNA. They're tournament adventures at heart. And so I think we just do so much of a better job nowadays of creating really, really good adventures.
Although I agree with you in general, I think there is something to be said about leaving a blank portion of the map, leaving those crevices mentioned but undescribed so that the GM can fill in what they want. With Rocket Age, I have not covered any detail of Saturn and on further out in the solar system. They get a couple paragraphs each in the core book. I haven't done a book on them yet. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to give too much detail until I'm ready to cover them. But I want to leave that until I do a Saturn book. It's your playground as the GM. If you want to put space elves in Saturn, that's your business. That's not mine. I wouldn't do it, but it's your table, and I'm not going to come to your house and tell you you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. No space.
I wag my finger at you.
I sometimes I feel like, you could make a fortune in gaming, which I don't know why you'd want to, but if you wanted to, by taking a time travel machine and going back to 1980 and said, okay, I'm going to publish Barrel Maze and I don't know,
Northland Saga.
To take a Northland. Oh my God, the Northland Saga. Oh my God, that would be. That would blow people's minds. That would blow people's minds. Yes,
you'd have to get your TSR license, right? There's no OGL.
Well,
so,
see,
if I'm going back in time, I'll run it at Gen Con, and then Gary will see how great I am and hire me. I'll end up working at TSR. And now I'll be one of the guys you're like, man, I hope he can make it to North Texas. It's harder for him to travel.
So he'll be one of the guys that didn't make very much money in the 80s, unfortunately.
Right.
And then you get to see your stuff like poor Alan Hammock, whose stuff is republished now for the 18 millionth time. He's not making a cent off of it anymore. He doesn't make any more money off Ghost Tower of Inverness, but
that's why you got to go into the fiction market. See,
exactly. That's what
Northlands, maybe forgotten Northlands.
There we go.
There's something there. It's on my tongue,
perhaps.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Well, a few of those guys. I mean, you have guys like Steve Winter that are still making a career in this business. So, I mean, a few of the guys have been able to keep it going. But yeah, that's amazing. Like I said, the stuff. A lot of people say we're in the golden age of board games, which we are. I mean, board games are better than they've ever been. They're just amazing. There's so many board games out there. I'll never get around to even playing a quarter of the ones I want to, just because they're so expensive and there's so many out there. I don't have enough time in the day. But I think we also have kind of a golden age of adventure gaming in terms of what we bring to the table and like I said, motivation and plot and just the sheer fact that they look, the adventures are they look really good. They look great now. And there's people like us who have had 30 and 40 years of reading adventures and reading what worked and what didn't work that are writing this stuff now. I think somebody mentioned up here about how great technically the Dragonlance modules looked. It was John. But they weren't really very good adventures because they were okay. Well, yeah, the characters can't die, but they looked great. I mean, they had great artwork. You had Elmore and Easley covers, and all those guys are in covers. The maps inside were great. What was the failure on them? Well, the failure was they were not very well written. Because they're like, okay, you got to do this. None of the characters can die. Blah blah blah, and that ruined them. So
they were trying too hard to hammer in the plot of the novels into an adventure format.
Yeah, they were trying to railroad you.
I had a lot more fun with the Adventures in Dragonlance Orange Spine book, and we played a lot of stuff on Krynn that wasn't, it was at the War of the Lance, but we were doing our own thing, largely because one of my players absolutely loved the Gnomish Engineers.
Oh boy, yeah.
But and everyone gives the Gnomes and Dragonlance and the Kinder a hard time, but let me tell you, if you were the right age when Dragonlance hit, if you were in 7th grade when Dragonlance came out, that is the most awesome stuff you've ever seen.
You're right. I wasn't that young. I was like, well, this module is stupid because we couldn't make any decisions.
Right.
No matter what happened, we're in the same spot. There's no decision to be made. And there's 12 of these? 13?
I tell you, there's a few of those Dragonlance adventures that ran really well. If you just took the adventure, I've run D1 a few times, the first Dragonlance adventure, as just in my world as a one shot, have no connection to Dragonlance.
Mm-hmm.
I just took the dungeon, and there's a dragon in the middle who lives in a well, and he comes up the well, and then just change all the monsters out. They work okay if you just eliminate everything and change up the whole thing and just use the map, and then maybe the basic plot line.
Use it exactly the opposite as it is, and
yes,
it works out fine.
But the problem is
not a selling point, Michael.
No, I know. But I'm just saying is, you look back in the old days, I didn't have time to write my own stuff. I just took that stuff, the TSR stuff, and I rewrote it to make it work. And so yes, that was one that I rewrote, and it worked out. My players loved it. They thought it was great. They didn't even know it was Dragonlance when I ran it because I wasn't using the module. I was using my notes. Like, oh, that was Dragonlance. Dragonlance sucks. Like, oh well, I know, but this one did suck. It was.
I'm not saying anything against Drizzt. I love Crystal Shard. I'm just saying you can enjoy both.
Sure.
Drizzt was later, if I remember right.
Yeah, it was.
Look, and no, yeah, that was late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, Drizzt was my college years.
Yeah. But I mean, there's, don't diss what's coming out now we have so many good creators now. It's just amazing. I look at, like, for instance, we announced the 3 Castles Award nominees, and I'm just looking at this stuff. It's everything's good. And we had like 15 or 16 submissions, and it was hell to have to go through them all because there was so much good stuff last year. And that was just a year. That's just a year in the life of D&D. And that was 1 year. There was, Necropolis and Greg Gillespie's Dwaro Deep, and I mean, just all kinds of just incredible stuff. And you're just thinking, man, anything here is just compared to what we had in 1983 is just amazing. And I'm not dissing. Look, I love a lot of the old stuff, and like I said, B1's my favorite adventure of all time because it does something that I don't even know if somebody's done it since then. Made a really good. Because the whole, if you're not familiar with B1, it is a adventure, and you fill in the blanks with your own treasure. It has lists of treasure, lists of everything's in there. It's a whole workshop for the event, for the beginning DM, because you have lists of treasure, lists of magic items, lists of monsters. You're supposed to fit them in the rooms wherever you want to. And the room, Mike Carr made some extremely evocative rooms. I mean, when years later, I've talked to players and they remember going to the room of pools that had all the pools of different substances. They remember going at, just different places. They remember all that because it was such an evocative locale. And that's one of the things I don't know if we've made a lot of really good low level, just introductory adventures like that are just so memorable that we all talk about. And Eric and I have talked about this too. Back in the day, there weren't a lot of choices. Like and so when we used to get together and you met another group that played D&D, like this, say in the 80s, you would all talk about, oh, what did your group do in Ravenloft? Because everybody had played Ravenloft. That there was only Ravenloft. Or what did your group do in B2? How did you guys do that? Because nowadays it's really hard to find two groups that do the same adventures because there's so much out there. There's a plethora of material that you don't have that kind of, I don't know what you call it, that group history where everybody played B2 and everybody played B1 and everybody played the Giants. Everybody played Tomb of Horrors. You just don't have that now. You don't have that one module that everybody plays. I think you do that a little bit with editions, like every edition has like a beginner type module that you go through. So I know people talk about the Mines of Feldiver. Is it Feldiver? I don't know how you pronounce it. That was the 5e introductory adventure.
Right.
I know a lot of people that have played that. That's like a touchstone for a lot of people. That's the word I'm looking for, touchstones. You don't have those touchstones anymore.
No, you
Well,
don't.
and you don't have that in general in geekdom and nerdery like you used to because there is such a diversity of options out there. There are so many things. I mean, could you imagine you would have walked into a major clothing store, a department store in 1984 and seen a Dungeons and Dragons t-shirt?
Yeah, no.
Well, you'd have seen it, but you wouldn't have worn it because you got beat up on the way to school.
Exactly.
So
Well, yeah. Okay.
Or made fun of, like, man, what's that D&D? Come on, man.
Yeah. So between that and you have so many options for your geeky, nerdy interests. It's more than just DC and Marvel. It's more than just Star Trek or Star Wars. There's so many options out there that we don't have the common touchstones we used to as a geeky culture. For example, we're sitting there playing the game and I threw out a Monty Python joke. Everyone's supposed to get it, right? Everyone's seen Monty Python. You know what? People even 10 years younger than me, and I'm 48, so people in their late 30s were going, I don't get it. What's that from?
What? Huh?
Swallow? And it's because, well,
Airspeed?
Yeah, but their entire lives, they've had more than 3 movies.
Sure. They didn't have, they weren't like us, and they weren't sitting there in college or high school having to watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail because that was it. I mean, that was everybody watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It was a midnight movie at the theater. I mean, everywhere. But exactly. So there's nothing like that. Yeah, exactly. There's no touchstone like that. Or if there are touchstones,
they've got 9 Star Wars and 6 different Terminator movies.
There's no Terminator movie after T2.
I agree, and there's only been 1 Highlander movie.
Oh well, yes,
there can be only one.
Exactly.
Yeah, there can be only one. Yeah.
So you can't really go beyond that.
Lensman asked, "What was your favorite Mega Dungeon and why?" So I'd like to say something which is funny. So for all the love that Mega Dungeons get, for those that don't know, the first Mega Dungeon that was ever actually officially published was Ruins of Undermountain in 1991. I mean, everybody talked about Mega Dungeons, and we knew that Castle Greyhawk was a Mega Dungeon, but Castle Greyhawk, as Castle Greyhawk was, never really came out. And so we don't really, our history of published Mega Dungeons really only goes back to maybe 1991. Yes, some of the Judges Guild stuff was Mega Dungeon-y, but it really wasn't a Mega Dungeon.
Yeah.
I mean, Caverns of Thracia and Dark Tower, there's not really Mega Dungeons. I mean, because if you look at Mega Dungeons, this is something that's going to take an entire campaign to explore. Yeah, they don't fit the bill. But so my favorite Mega Dungeon was Ruins of Undermountain, because really that was the first one that was ever published, and I thought it was really cool. I thought Ed Greenwood did a great job on it. There's lots of empty spaces for the DM to develop. Some people were like, well, I paid for this Mega Dungeon and 3/4 of it aren't described. Well, exactly, dumbass. That's the point. You're supposed to put your own stuff in there. But he had a whole city. It's underneath Waterdeep. Here's a whole city here. Here's this. And I really enjoy. I had a really good long running campaign in Undermountain. So I'll say Ruins of Undermountain was my favorite.
I'm going to go out on an unpopular limb here.
Yes.
Legend of the Spelljammer.
I didn't even know that was a Mega Dungeon. Legend of the Spelljammer was a Mega Dungeon?
I mean,
I did not know. I did not know this.
I'd call it a mega dungeon.
Is it a giant spaceship?
It's a giant spaceship.
Okay, this is interesting. Oh, it's been the Spelljammer. Okay, this is a Spelljammer. I have this box set, and I probably never opened it.
I actually think I.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, wait a
I've
second.
never been able to play it.
This they made this into a 3D set for Gen Con 92, my one Gen Con, and they were doing battles on this thing. Like you,
Oh yeah.
Oh, very cool.
And,
Okay, well, I
Dale-
gotta dig this
Dale-
out. And read it.
Dale Slade Henson was running it, and I was playing in it. And then Dale goes up to me because I was like 24, 25. I was older than most of the jackasses there. And he's like, listen, I got to take a whiz. Can you cover this for 10 minutes? I'm like, all you got to do is just make them roll D20s, and whoever rolls high wins, and the other one dies, or however you want to work, make it work. I'm like, I could do that. 45 minutes later.
Oh no, he
He
left
went-
you in the.
He went, he got his food, or whatever he did, came back. I'm running this thing. He was like, how'd you do? I go, I killed a lot of people. He goes, all right, scram, kid. 'Cause I guess one of the bosses were probably going to come back and wonder who the fuck is this,
Oh boy.
jackass running the game. But yeah,
All right, that's one on my. Was not on my list, Ken. So I will.
I would not. Yeah.
I got to pull out. So what about you, Eric? What's your mega dungeon? What
My
scratches your mega dungeon itch?
Stonehell, because
Oh,
the
Stonehell's
first-
great. Yeah,
the
very
first
good.
OSR mega dungeon that I found,
Mhm.
or that I knew of, and for a while, it kept on growing with new additions to it. I think mega dungeons are supposed to keep on growing, so it was always like, oh, there's new holes found. Okay,
Oh
I have
wait,
one down here. I can't drag it out because there's too many books about it.
wait, Mike, aren't we supposed to say Rappanathic? I think we're supposed to say Rappanathic, or Jen's going to be honest. It's
Look,
Rappanathic. I like to change.
Oh yeah,
that.
Rapid Ethic. No, I like Rapid Ethic a lot. But it wasn't. I mean, Rapid Ethic. Look, it came out. It was first officially released in 2000 for third edition. Well, I didn't play third edition. I read through it. It was kind of cool, but really, it didn't come out for Swords and Wizardry till 2012 or 10.
Oh yeah.
So I was
Yeah,
really
why not?
kind of past my Mega Dungeon gaming stage. I never ran it. I mean, I've read through it a few times. It is really cool, but I've never played it. Never. Played.
I ran it. The campaign ended when Joe the lawyer found the
the
machines.
Yes.
And
So-
then that's where the party got killed in the end. 'Cause he wouldn't leave until he pressed his luck. To the point that like Junior Orcas or something like that was coming down to kill everybody. So I was like, all right, well, we'll break out something new for next week.
I like Greg Gillespie's Mega Dungeon a lot, but they're not traditional in the traditional
break
sense.
them up.
Even
You can break it up.
Barrel Maze isn't. We just got through with a 3-year campaign in Highfell, which is not a traditional Mega Dungeon. It's a floating island with a bunch of little towers on it that you go through. So it's not one giant Mega Dungeon, which I appreciate. He does different things like that, but I don't think that's traditional. I wouldn't say that's a traditional type Mega Dungeon. I always think a traditional Mega Dungeon is a hole in the ground, and it's so gigantic that you could spend your whole career exploring it, and you're never going to get everything out of it. You go from level 1 to level 20, and you're still going, God, there's still things in here we haven't figured out yet. So there's not a whole lot that fits that bill, but yes, definitely Rapid Ethic. It's just that I've never actually been in a party going down there.
Yeah.
I've used there's a temple on the top. The temple, there's like a frog temple or something. I've actually used that in some of my campaigns as a one-shot type adventure, but I've never actually, taken a character or taken a group down in there. So
Wow. So
and then I would love. I think Art and Vol is an amazing accomplishment. I don't know how on
I
earth
can't
you
even
run
read
it.
it. I own a physical copy.
It's
and I can't read it.
insane. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely insane. It's so gigantic that it's just nuts.
My ambition when I was like, oh, I can use my affiliate monies from Drive-Thru to buy this, and then it arrived and I went, what the fuck?
Where do I start? Because
yeah,
it's ridiculous. I
should
mean,
look at the
it's quite an
PDF.
accomplishment.
And it could have been unread as most of my PDFs. We never got to This Week in Gaming Stupid because as often as it becomes, the sandbox took over. So, we're about to hit the 2 hour mark. So I want to make sure
Oh my, yeah.
we get up
What
the
in
Indiegogo.
particularly? There's a lot of stupid out there. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of stupid. You know what? The stupid will have to wait till next week.
what? We don't have time for stupid this week? You gotta be kidding me.
Well, what how much stupid was there? People going around claiming that everybody talking about a certain game on Kickstarter making nearly $900,000 was paying people like me to talk about it. That's
People have to. You're gonna have to off the air. You're gonna have to be more specific because I'm interested now. But people have to look. It's
well,
jealousy. It's jealousy on one hand because they're jealous because somebody that nobody ever heard of is going to
right.
make $1 million.
Mhm.
And I hate to say this because I don't usually roll this way, but it was a girl that made $1 million, who's actually not a girl. She's a woman. And so,
Technicalities, Michael. Technicalities.
but I'm just saying is that's what they're going to say is that I can't believe this. And the fact that it's 5e because a lot of people are still
It's built off of 5e.
they're antsy about 5e even though it's an old school take on 5e.
Yep.
And so it's there's just a lot of factors that come into play there, and I think people are much more accepting of successful Kickstarters when it's a Monty Cook or Wolfgang Barr, because they've paid their dues, right? They've been around forever. They've been in the gaming industry for God knows how many years. And so, when they make $1 million, okay, well, that's okay because they have they worked for this. They worked hard for this, and so look, Gavin had the same thing happen when OSE made so much money. There was a lot of sniping at Gavin about OSE. It's just but the main thing with that was, it's just BX. All he's done is repackage BX. So why is this getting so much money? I don't understand. I have my BX rules right here. I don't need OSE. Well, he did a really good job with BX though. He took BX and made a really cool presentation and did some great art and some great layout and yeah. I mean, I'm sorry that wasn't your idea, average fan number 5, right, but to do this, but
I had that exact same idea 2 years ago. Well, then what'd you do with it? Well, I wasn't motivated to write it down, and then I got off the toilet and it left me. I mean,
hold on. Peter Pham, some schmuck is calling Kelsey the Lorraine Williams OSR. I don't even know how to respond to that because it makes no sense. It makes no sense. That doesn't. What?
I don't know if this is directed already, but I do know the few voices that have been like, well, yeah, that's what I heard, are all coming back to one source in the OSR. Who can be an opinionated negative Nelly at points.
Off the air. Sounds like more off the air discussion. Sounds like. But
I guess we're gonna have to go off the air so I can give you the discussion.
All right. Can we answer Lensman's last question there? Because I think
my brain just shut down. My brain just shut down. So let's reset. We're gonna. Ken is running a Kickstarter. Author's Guide to Martian Life. It's on Indiegogo. It's not on Kickstarter. I'm sorry. I say Kickstarter because it's a generic term now. It's actually on Indiegogo.
It's not a Kleenex.
No, I tried to find it on Kickstarter. It was not on Kickstarter. It's
on Indiegogo. It's for Rocket Age, both classic and 5e. It is a book of 20 alien monsters. Even if you don't play Rocket Age, if you play a 5e or Vortex system game, you'll want to pick this up because the monsters are beautifully illustrated, wonderfully written, and just terrifying, except for the cute ones who are cute and terrifying.
Folks, the link to it's on the bottom of the screen. At the very least, you know what to search for on Indiegogo. Ken, thank you. We didn't get to talk much about your prior work before gaming. That always makes Michael very happy when we talk.
I love his archaeology stories, but I've already heard him now like 3 times because the last couple times we had him on. But next time we have him on,
I've got ones I haven't shared. There's
next time
Michael being happy though, so we'll have to hold it the next time.
Oh yeah, there's a couple I'd have to tell you off the air because they're not for general publication.
See, I don't know that. Do we have somebody else in the industry that's an archaeologist? I don't know that we do. So I think that's pretty cool. I
think the older and somewhat less attractive Kenneth I believe his last name is Height, is a historian, possibly.
Right.
But
Kenneth
they
Houghton.
work inside and they don't actually get out and get their hands dirty.
Yeah, those academics, blah.
Yeah.
Go
What has he
figure.
done lately? What has he done?
If you aren't doing field science, then really, I mean, why don't you just go ahead and go back behind mama's apron? That's what I say.
That's what I like. I like
There
the
you
tougher.
go.
Yeah, there you go. You show him his boss.
Well, actually, it's probably the one that's doing the academic work, my experience. But there was like, I'm too smart. I stay inside. I don't get wet. I don't get cold. I don't get burned in the hot sun. You know.
It wasn't the hot, wet, cold, and the sunburns that bothered me as much as the day we got shot at. That was probably the worst.
All right. Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I at least my job, I was wearing a vest. I had that advantage.
I had a leather cowboy hat, so that's something.
You know what? I can buy one of those on Amazon. They're not that expensive.
No, I think that made my AC 11 plus deck mod.
Oh,
all right. Well, thanks for coming on, Ken. And the way things are going, probably have you on another 2 months. So
We've got some more stuff at Frog God Games. We'll definitely want to be on and talk about.
Oh boy, here we go.
Expect to see Ken probably.
Or you can always just have me on to talk to me. I know all sorts of wonderful things, and I have opinions.
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 We've all got opinions.
Not afraid to say them.
Even better. So, folks, huge thanks to Ken. No thanks to Mike, but he's here. He's here every Wednesday. I don't have to thank him. Again, Arthur's Guide to Martian Life. I should make the quick note. By the way, I am not paid by anybody at Arcane Media or whatever, or Arcanum or Kelsey, because
Has that come up too? Oh dear God!
Oh yeah, I was
getting
paid.
Me.
I was getting paid for my actually my audience, my viewers were like, "Hey, this is cool. Continue with this." I'm getting PMs. I like what you're doing. All right. I see the subscriber numbers go up. So give your audience what they want, but then you have the few people that are like, you're being paid. Listen, I make $8 a day on average now on YouTube, up from $5. It's not paying a bill. I'm sorry.
Why is it everybody's go-to? Oh, you must be getting paid.
I must be getting paid. Mike, if we were getting paid,
I wish I could use a couple. I could use some green.
Pay
me. I don't have any principles. I'm not like
Eric. Mike won't even tell me that he's getting paid.
No, just pay me and I'll start talking up your shit. So
yeah, and I'll be like, Mike, why are we talking about Bozo's Guide to Bozo? I have no idea.
I don't know. It just sounded like it was a great idea.
Around.
It's a great idea, man. It's going to be awesome.
As many people have been saying, our initials are not QB. So I'll leave it at that. Folks, be safe, be well. God bless. For all those dice, roll them well. Tomorrow night on the Discord server, we do a hangout in the Speakeasy. So if you're there, join us. Next live stream will be Friday night, hopefully. I know Glenn Halstrom, old man Grognar, just moved.
So God, is he hooked up yet?
In at his new abode.
Does he have internet yet? He must have internet.
Question. So we'll find out soon enough. All right, folks. God bless. Mañana.
Later.